motor show this week, will liquid petroleum gas ever take off? We look at the grey areas surrounding clocking cars and a report on illegal street racing.
When you buy a Jeep, you get 2 tugs at the heartstrings. 55 years ago, your granddad may have driven one deep into World War II. The second tug comes from Chrysler, who now own the Jeep name. They've kept that rugged image going non-stop so that you can safely become a peacetime hero. This week, nose to tail, the Willys MB Jeep and the 1997 Jeep Wrangler Sahara, codename TJ.
During the war, Willys made over 1/3 Jeeps, and when Ford got into the act, production topped 1 million. Plenty of transport then for Hollywood's heroes. This week, the motor show pits the original Willys Jeep against the contemporary Jeep Wrangler Sahara.
This is the real thing. Built in 1943 and used by the British Army. It could have been around on D-Day.
You can spend a lot of time on roads looking for a permitted place to test the off-roading capability. So let's start this inspection on the blacktop.
In 1943, acceleration like this was considered phenomenal, and the 3 gears got you up to a cruising speed of 45 miles an hour. Although they do say that John Wayne could push his to 55. With a ride like this, you need true grit and a back brace. Mind you, it handles really well, with incredibly responsive steering that just dares you to chuck it around. And all these were left-hand drive, presumably so you can enjoy driving on the continent.
After the war, civilians quickly became soft, and general criticisms of all generations of Jeep was that they were too Spartan, too harsh on the road. So, half a century on, Chrysler is finally introducing coil-sprung suspension, and it helps a lot, though on less than silken roads. You still retain that short wheelbase feel of a well-sprung rocking horse. Still, a long and leggy 5th gear smooths things out very nicely on the motorway, just 2,000 revs at 70. And as for speed, that old-fashioned 4-litre up there would top 100 with ease for those mad and bad enough to risk their licence.
Side by side, you can see how carefully the signature of the original survives. The grille, the rounded headlights, the distinctive bumpers. The star on the bonnet? Well, that was to let the Allied pilots know whose side you were on.
In 1991, Jeep made a big styling mistake, which triggered off an American t-shirt protest. Real Jeeps don't have square headlights.
Fully restored, you should be able to pick one of these up for about £6,000. Points of interest? Well, you get luxury upholstery and a free shovel. Actually, the driver sits on top of the petrol tank, so if you are getting shot at, this shovel could come in very handy. Nothing is adjustable, except for the driver's breathing. And if you're looking for the windscreen wipers, there they are. Still, pull that, start that, and with a bit of luck, off we go. For the technical among you, the pulling power of the vintage model comes from a 2.2 litre side valve, that's 63 brake horsepower, and a torque or grunt factor of 105 foot-pounds.
Now with an engine almost twice as big, the Wrangler has twice the torque and 174 brake horsepower. It feels like it.
Of course, there's high and low ratio 4x4, but my favourite feature is this gearbox. It's straight down for first, reminds me of the old Ford Pop, but if there's any trouble ahead, whack it straight up for reverse, and off you go backwards. Where's that shovel?
The Jeeps may be over 50 years apart, but both took the hills and rough terrain in their stride. But the modern suspension of the Wrangler is set up to compromise with smooth tarmac. It makes riding the rough stuff pretty uncomfortable.
The Willys looks good and I've had great fun in it, but the combination of the hard ride and the low top speed has me hankering after the relative luxury of the Wrangler.
55 years is a long time, £16,500, a long number. But I look at it this way, if you want an affordable classic, this could be it. Remember, it was designed to be fixed by people in a hurry. And the final luxury, this is the concourse car you don't have to polish. Just hose it down now and again. Oof, karting. great fun, addictive even, but it can be a dirty old business, with petrol fumes building up to cause headaches and smarting eyes. But at this new circuit at the Winter Gardens in Blackpool, they don't have that problem, because these carts run on gas. David, you've worked at petrol cart circuits. What's the big difference?
Well, the big difference is they're so safe, so clean, and so quiet, and easier to manage.
I would guess there's a big difference in the emissions, because even after charging around the circuit for a while, I don't smell anything in the air.
Well, there's about 80% reduction in the fumes from this.
But don't you lose something in performance?
We've got a 3% drop in performance, but with increasing the engine size, we've compensated. In actual fact, we've slightly overcompensated, gives us a better performance cart with better conditions.
Beyond the Blackpool trams, electric vehicles haven't ever really taken off because of their limited range and long refuelling time. So could LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, be the answer to worsening air pollution and the associated health problems? Is LPG safe, practical and economical? And how does it affect performance?
At the moment we're running on petrol. When you switch to gas in a minute, you won't notice any difference, I guarantee it.
Can I just flip while we're running?
Yes, just switch it there. There we are, we're now running on gas.
It's just the same slight bump and there we are.
Yeah.
So how do all the costs work out, Andrew?
Well, it costs around £1,000 to convert this car. As for the cost of the fuel, that's around 10 to 15% less than petrol in use. Now, for gas to really catch on in a big way, that price differential has to be much more.
At what point would you start getting your money back if you've paid for the conversion and then fuel at the current prices?
If you drive around 20 to 30,000 miles a year and you keep your car for around 3 or 4 years, then it's just about worth doing.
Gas power is increasingly practical, with over 40 filling stations in the UK and gas conversion kits now readily available.
Chris, this is obviously the tank. Where do you put that?
That can be sited at any convenient location in the boot of the vehicle or down one side. It can also be bolted into position and mounted underneath vehicles as well.
So wherever it fits. What about the other components?
The main components here is the gas regulator for under bonnet, the actual gas induction adapter here, and the onboard computer operating the petrol changeover.
Right, so between petrol and gas?
Absolutely, yes.
OK, so is it easy to fit?
Yes, any competent mechanic can fit the conversion, which basically consists of the key components, the regulator, the adapter, and the wiring, which is basically what's soldered into the wiring loom on the vehicle.
And can you convert any car?
Any spark ignition engine can be converted with ease, no problem.
Now, how safe is it to drive around with a gas tank?
Perfectly safe. The gas tank itself is structurally tested and is also sealed, so if ever there was a leak of gas, it's automatically vented to atmosphere.
Away from the gas cart circuit, the 14 pence a litre duty is the main stumbling block. Holland's 2 pence a litre is the industry's target.
The numbers of gas converts in Britain are quietly rising, with carting circuits in pole position. But without serious commitment from government to making cleaner fuels like LPG cheaper and more readily available, then most of us will only ever use the stuff in our camping stoves.
Professional drag racing is a spectator sport that pulls in crowds to rival soccer's Premier League. And like football, it also has the equivalent of a Sunday league, the highly illegal amateur sport of street racing. The rules are simple. Hang around one of a few certain parking lots at midnight and wait until someone bets their car is faster than yours. If the cops don't arrive, you could be $1,000 richer in 10 seconds, but you've got to be careful out there.
It was right over there at that phone booth when the shooting happened, and it's gone from the point where it was like a fun thing that everybody, enjoyed, and then the gangsters and everything started getting into it, and there were shootings and robbings, and people are racing, instead of for $5 or $10, they're racing for $1,000, and instead of speeds of say like 90 or 95 miles an hour, people are racing 140, 150 miles an hour. It's gone from a crowd that wants to race to a crowd that just wants to hang out and make trouble and try and see who's superior and all that kind of stuff.
But the first race of the night is on, so everyone moves out to a street the racers have quickly shut down to normal traffic. To get there, it's a case of follow my leader until you trip over the course marshals. There are great and ancient rivalries at work here. Will it be the Ford or the Chevy first at the finish line? Now, we we noticed that the parking lot is sort of segregated into Ford and Chevrolet, yet you're a proud Mopar or Chrysler product owner. Tell us about your car.
My car, I got it when I was 15, and the first thing I wanted to do was make it faster, and I kept buying like $50, $100 parts, and I'm 20 now. I've had it for 5 years, and I probably put a total of at least $65,000 into it.
What kind of car is it? What year is it?
It's a 68 Dodge Charger. It's got all the framework done. It's got a full roll cage in it, nice 440 engine, and it's pretty much as far as you can go while still keeping the basic idea of a stock car.
And there are lots of other 20-year-old street racers here who've put 40,000 pounds or more into their cars. It's a serious business, shaving off those tenths of a second before Saturday night comes around again. And remember, there's big money at stake. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, the inevitable occurs. This activity is dangerous and highly illegal, and there is an official track only 60 miles away.
Street racing is definitely more of a rush. The cops come, you're always watching out. You don't feel the same rush that you do at the track where it's organized and sanctioned and everything.
The police showed up and everybody left. There was only one policeman, about 200 people. If there had been, so I don't blame the cop for not arresting anybody, but what would happen if there were fewer people and a few more police? What do the police do?
Sometimes they'll pull you over. It depends. They just don't have the manpower to, like there's so many people, everybody goes to the races, comes back here when the police come, goes to the races. It happens all night till like 1, 2, 3 in the morning. And they'll kind of catch as many people as they can, and you can get a ticket just for sitting around and watching, being a spectator.
Aiding and abetting or supporting it?
Yeah, it's like supporting the races. And of course the drivers, if they get pulled over, you get a really big fine for being a driver. You have to do community service, and a car gets impounded, which I can tell you personally.
Yeah.
And it's like $395 to get it out of impound for like 2 days.
Well, that's one excuse to race on the streets.
It's not a bad track. And it's an hour away, you know, an hour. When you got a car that gets 5, 6 miles to the gallon, and you don't have a truck and a trailer and everything else, you got to drive an hour away. That's $20, $30 of gas money, you know, each way sometimes.
Just to get to the track.
And just these people, you know, a lot of us like work at McDonald's or whatever, flipping burgers, you know, or 17, 18, 19, and you don't make that much where you can spend, you know, for one Friday night racing the track. By the time you get drinks and gas and everything else, and gas for racing, you're looking at 60, 70, $80.
Well, I suppose that's one excuse to race on the streets, but it only leaves me to say, kids, please don't try this at home.
Coming up on the Motor Show, 70 years on the roads and it still works like new. And how to ensure that you aren't the victim of a clocking rip-off.
This is the life, cruising along the leafy Cheshire country lanes in a beautiful car. It's trouble-free motoring at its best. And after 63,000 miles and almost 70 years, this original Vauxhall Princeton Tourer, affectionately known as TU because of the number plate, has amazingly broken down only once.
It's only on its second set of tyres now.
How do you manage to keep it running then?
With the goodwill of friends. You've got to have a good mechanic and a top engineer for it.
Vauxhall recognised TU to be unique because after being in the same family for 70 years, it's in its original form. Doris's husband bought the car back in 1926 for just £495. And since his death, this 87-year-old retired schoolteacher is a familiar sight on the country lanes of Delamere.
Will you ever sell this car, Doris?
No.
Why?
I couldn't. He asked me to keep it. I'd lose all my boyfriends.
How many times have people offered to buy this car from you?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. The latest one is a man who works for the Ministry of the Interior in Bahrain. He says his money's in the Swiss bank waiting for it.
What's the reaction to the car from the villagers?
Oh, the villagers, especially the children, love it. If they can get in the car and do this. That's just what they want.
How do you feel now when you drive the car?
At peace with the world.
What happened to this car during the war, during the rationing years?
It was on the lawn. We had a small one running, but with no petrol for this one.
You really enjoy driving this, don't you, Doris?
Thoroughly enjoy it. And I enjoy taking people out in it.
I don't suppose you'd let me have a drive of it, would you?
Yes, I might if it was a straight road.
Will you teach me how to drive
And provided you let me stop if I want to get out.
Oh, absolutely. There were 3,500 of these made in Luton between 1923 and 1927, and there are just under 80 left in existence, most of them in museums. But this car is unique because it's been in the same family since new, and it's particularly special because it's in its original condition. But cars like this need some looking after, and the man who looks after this little beauty is Kiet. Now, Kiet, taking the wheel off.
Yes, good. Yes,
What is it about cars of this age, do you think?
Oh, they're rugged and they're repairable. As you know, you can...
And very basic.
Yes.
I mean, talk me through that engine block. It's 2.3 litres, I know, but it doesn't seem to be much of it.
No, well, it's just a very compact little four-cylinder engine with an updraft carburettor, and the float is sensitive to perforation. So it needs fairly regular checking. It's very simple though, you can undo it like that, and I'll turn the petrol on here, and we'll see that if that float comes up, we know it's not perforated and it's working. So now there she is, it's come up, so that's all right.
Of course, you can't just nip into a Vauxhall dealership and buy the spares off the shelf, can you?
No, it's amazing though how everything can be taken apart and looked at, and when you find out what is really worn, it's some small part that you can either rebuild or get from the club or get from somebody else or just end up making.
So you make a lot of the spares
Yes, we've
yourself.
made a few little pieces for it, but not much. This car's required very little in the time that I've been associated with it.
How much longer do you think this particular car will survive?
Oh, I can't see. I think indefinite is the only word. As long as there's somebody who will take care of it, it'll go on forever.
My turn to have a go at last. I've been looking forward to this. It does take a bit of getting used to because obviously it's heavy and a huge steering wheel, but a very impressive gearbox apart from the lack of synchromesh. I'm doing 20 miles an hour now, but I'm told that 2.3 litre engine will take me to a top speed of 60. I think I'll just take the word for it.
Don't go too fast. Down from that top. Oh, you did very well. Oh my, I'm quite jealous.
A double D clutch, do you see?
No, my arms aren't as good as they used to be. I give you full marks. I did go quite a long way with you.
70 years in the same family gives a real new meaning to one lady owner. I only hope that in 70 years' time, my own car is going this well. Clocking is a con as old as the hills. This is just one way of doing it, but whichever method you use, it boils down to the same thing: tampering with the mileage to make the car more attractive and more valuable to a gullible buyer. These days, of course, the instruments on many cars are electronic, but does that mean they can't be altered? And if they can, how's it done? I'm off to North Staffordshire to find out.
In essence, it's easier to adjust a digital dashboard than it is a mechanical one.
Colin, I can see from the screen that your software covers most, if not all, cars.
Yeah, the software covers about 95% of the vehicles currently on the market. As you can see there, we've got BMW, Jag, Mercedes, Renault, Volkswagen, etc.
They're not all as easy to do as the BMW 3 Series, though.
No, the 3 Series is the most easiest one to do at the moment. All others have to come out, the dashboard has to come out, but they're relatively straightforward to strip down. I mean, this is out of a VW Golf, and several screws, and the back comes off, gives you direct access to the memory device.
This one looks a bit more complicated. This is a Jaguar.
This is from the current Jaguar ones, and this one is the actual mileage is housed within a microprocessor. And again, we build a clip that goes on there, and we can read out the original mileage and recalibrate it. The equipment was built and designed to help repair digital dashboards, but obviously there's also other reasons or elements that it can be used for. In general, I mean, if the dashboard is faulty, corrupt, or you want to replace it for a second-hand one, then the original mileage can be restored.
Now, some would say that sounds dodgy.
There's two ways of looking at it, you know, in two lights you can look at it. We sell it for the repair of dashboards, but obviously some people may purchase it for other activities. But the dashboard itself, recalibration, is certainly not illegal.
We are very angry about it. We feel that we are a respectable industry, and the majority of us wouldn't dream of doing this, and I understand that over 70% of the clocking incidents are done actually by private individuals.
How has the problem been exacerbated by the way we buy our cars these days?
Well, if a lease company car is on a 3-year lease, you have stipulated what mileage you will do. Say over that period you'll do 60,000 miles. If you've done 70,000 miles, there is a penalty to pay. I.e. for a volume franchise car, it's probably £25 per 1,000. But if it's a prestige car, it's probably £150 per 1,000. So they've got a lot of money to gain by having their cars wound back by that 10,000 miles.
The normal person in the street is more than likely to do it than the trader. The trader, with heavy penalties involved these days, will quite literally get summoned for it.
We've established that adjusting the mileage itself is not illegal, but then you do get into sticky problems if you don't inform the next buyer, don't you?
It is up to the person who owns the vehicle to disclose that information upon resale. If he doesn't, then there's grey areas of the law when you can probably get prosecuted for obtaining money by deception, and also the Trades Description Act.
Trading standards are extremely concerned about the fact that people are either offering the services or offering the means by which other people can make these reductions on computerised odometers.
So the watchdogs will be more on their guard in the future. But what extra teeth could be given to the authorities? Sue Brownson's got a few ideas.
We would very much like a law to be passed that you cannot clock your car, and that it is actually something that you will be prosecuted for, fined a lot of money, and perhaps go to prison.
Always, always insist on full documentation, the V5 form and a full service history. If they are genuine, they will tell the real story. If you've any doubts, walk away.